Welcome to Two Souls Podcast, a podcast to shift, impact, empower, and disrupt your consciousness, ultimately allowing you to thrive in this human experience. Now here are your hosts, Amber Meganhauser and Angela Blaha.
Welcome everyone to Two Souls Podcast. We're so grateful that you're here. I'm Angela.
And I am Amber. Yes, very happy for everyone to be here. What is our topic for today, Angela?
Let's talk about being a god, or seeing ourselves as gods, or feeling like we are a god, because moving forward in the energies of the consciousness, like we have to see ourselves as equal to God, right? And every religious text in the world says that, but we're not actually doing it. So what's your perception about that?
I definitely agree. I think that people view themselves under God. And when you first, I think it's what society teaches us, we're always beneath somebody else in a way. It's that hierarchy where there's levels to everything. Like that's what's taught to us as we're young. But the more you're aware of your own self, like you do understand that that's exactly who you are. You are comparable to God. We are all gods in a different way. We all have different abilities. We all have different powers. And that's our God self to us. Not that we are beneath God, because we aren't. We are equal to him. We all have something a little bit different in a different way, but that doesn't make us not a god. We are gods.
Mm-hmm.
How can people get past that, viewing themselves as beneath someone else instead of equivalent to God?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? That's the big how do we do that? Because we have been programmed and taught and persecuted, literally persecuted, for thinking that we are equal to, the consciousness of God. And so how do we get past that? Well, you really have to have a deep connection with God. I mean, that's the first thing, right? Because if you really have a deep connection and you're in communication and you are like, if you communicate with God, God tells you all the time, you're not less than me. I mean, even Jesus or Yeshua even said that when he was here on earth, that you are equal to me. You can do all the things that I can do and probably beyond me. And so we have to start, in order to make shifts in consciousness, we have to move into that space of, wait, could it be possible? Could it be possible that God doesn't exist outside of me, that God actually exists inside of me? And if that is true, like you have to change that whole concept of the whole thinking. If that is true, then why do I not act like God? Why do I not believe the things that God believes? Why do I not think like God? Why do I not feel like God? Why do I not treat the earth and the universe and people like God? Right? Like that's the whole shift that we have to make right now, is that we are not in a hierarchy any longer. We are in this age of Aquarian where we do need to start believing and being and acting as God. Now, we get to choose what kind of God we want to act like, right? We can be an all loving, all compassionate, all like knowing kind of God, or we can be an evil, nasty, dominating, controlling kind of a God, which is where we are right now. Our world is very full of beings who want to dominate, control, and manipulate other beings. That's where we've been in the past, and we're trying to shift that. So now we need to start being and acting as what we want the world to be. So the first thing to do is to start thinking, change your thinking about what is God, right? Do I still see God being outside of me, or do I have, enough confidence and competence to be God?
I totally agree with that. You said that perfectly, that it's about how you view God. Is it outside of you or inside of you? And I think that's what people don't understand, that they have their own God self. And
Yeah.
And it does I mean, you have to go through levels of awareness to understand like what that actually means. Because I grew up very Catholic, and I know you grew up in the church also. So I think that as you grow and you go through the stages, you understand that, like, I feel like in the church, everybody teaches that, they teach we do have powers, but in a way, not really. We're not
Right.
taught to use them. It's actually viewed like bad if you use them kind of powers. And so I think that's where the lack is, that we've been taught the wrong way for so long that people don't even understand, like, they have their own God self, and it is so different than like saying, oh, like, that's God, or like, we don't say, oh, I'm God. It's like, it's our God self and what's inside of us and how we can change the world. And so that it's a view thing with people. And I almost feel like people look at you egotistical if you view yourself as that, but it's so wrong to actually think that, because if you don't view your own God self, you're actually like, I don't know what word I want to use. It's like you are setting yourself up for lack in your whole life if you don't know your own power and your own God self. Because that's how you get to where you want to be. And you gain so much passion when you know your God self. Like, everything around you has so much passion to it. And we've realized this ourselves. I mean, a lot of people know Angela and I have started this business, and we've been working some mad crazy hours, but it doesn't feel like work. I mean, we're there 12 hours a day and we have a fantastic time the whole time we're there, because it's so great. And that's what knowing your God self is. Like, it's having so much passion for everything around you and creating the most amazing things with it.
Yes. Yeah. Another thing about, we're taught to pray, let's say, pray to God or pray to your higher self, your soul self, whatever. But again, all of those things are taught in a way that puts you in a disposition to your own self, even, right? Like, even your higher self or your soul self is seen outside of you. That is one of the atrocities to humanity. In my opinion, that's one of the horrible atrocities to humanity, because it takes all your power away. It takes every single bit of your power away from you. And it gives it to something that that we can't see, that we don't really know. We're just supposed to believe in something, right? But it's wrong. That is wrong. That's a very strong word, wrong.
It is wrong.
It is wrong. And it harms us.
It does. And honestly, like, with that part of it, the power there means something different. Like, so when we talk about like our power, that's our creative power. That is our power to change the world. That is our power of love. That is our power of so many amazing things. It's not a forceful power to control people. So people need to understand that there is two different types of power. We're not being in our power to control somebody. We are standing in our power to do amazing things to try to change the world. And So, viewing your God self, that's where I think some of the lack is, because people look at it as a control, and it's not. It has nothing to do with that. Taking your power is standing in your own self and loving the world around you. So
Yeah.
your God self is your power, but we
Mm-hmm.
use it in a good way, and people just need to view it as something amazing, not something that other people have controlled in the past.
Yeah. Being confident, right? Like, if being confident in who you are, knowing yourself, like I repeat that constantly to people. And in the class that I'm doing right now, the leadership class, like, that was brought up this last week of, what do you mean know thyself? And I'm like, you have to know yourself inside and out. You have to see who you truly are, how your behavior, your actions, your thoughts, your emotions all either align with who you are and why you're here, or it separates you. And knowing yourself from the inside means that you see yourself as, you see God within you, right? And you see your soul
Yes.
as in you. Like, those should be your dominating factors, or the archetypes that pull you into alignment. Not the ego, not the things that we think, not the things that we're told to believe in. Those things are all outside of ourselves. But we have been taught, and the world has functioned in the dysfunction of believing, of the beliefs, of the emotions, of the programs, versus the real truth, which is, knowing and understanding your soul self, your God self, the parts of us that we can't see, the unseen. Everybody talks about shamanism, especially talks about the unseen. Those are probably more real than the seen, because the seen is all about the belief systems. The seen is all about what we've been taught. The seen is all about how we are supposed to view things based on someone else's theory or concept or idea. But if we actually look to the unseen and focus on that, like, that's where the consciousness resides. That's where truth resides. That's where all the seven powers of the soul reside, like you being 100% responsible to your soul self, your God self, versus your human self. And that, again, is one of those things that are taught throughout religions, but we don't act upon them, right? Like, we don't act upon those kinds of things. Why is it that we don't act upon that kind of thing? That's where the problem lies. That's where the problem lies.
I think it's, you said it's seeing the unseen, and when you said that, it actually fits perfectly, because people are afraid of the unseen. I feel like they're so afraid of who they may become, and then you know what, the seven powers do fall into place. You are responsible for yourself. Like, everything falls into place when you can see what you haven't seen within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That was a perfect way to put it, because unless you know there is so much out there that society teaches us, and then unless you have a friend, or some random person say something to you that just kind of triggers like a self-awareness in you, that you're like, oh, that's crazy that comes up right now. That kind of stuff isn't coincidence. It actually happens for a reason, every bit of it. So the unseen, that's what it is. It's becoming more aware of everything around you, and like, you don't just have this tunnel vision about what society teaches us, because it's actually a lie. Like, half of it's not even freaking true. So it definitely opens up your eyes to, like, your God self is like seeing yourself as the unseen.
Yeah, because well, let's talk about that for a bit, right? Like so the unseen is the part of you that is probably either a shadow part that um, is that we don't want to address, or it's for most of us, it's the most powerful part of who we are. And we're so afraid of being powerful because we've been trained not to be powerful that we just sort of like, we don't even want to address it. And then it becomes a shadow. You see how like shadow portions of us are generally the things that we should move into because they're the most expansive. They're the most wise. They're the most like passionate and confident. Like that's where it brings you the confidence. It's not our weaknesses, but we don't teach our strengths, and we don't act upon our strengths. And that's where humanity falters. That is where humanity doesn't, like, that's why we can't see that we're equal to everyone, to all that is, to God, to the soul. Like, that's why, is because we focus on our weaknesses. And when we're weak, we are not powerful beings. We are not confident in who we are. We don't know who we are. We're just floundering around, moving from one thing to another, thinking that we're living, but we're not actually living, we're surviving. And when you move into and understand who you are, and you become very confident in who you are and competent in who you are, I think that's a word that we don't ever use and we overlook, because when you're competent, you know your strengths. And when you're strong, you see yourself equal to all that is. And that is where your power resides. And you don't want to dominate. You don't want to dominate and control others. You want them to be as free as you feel. Right? It's when we're so limited.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's when we're so limited in our thinking and in our feeling. Like in our world right now, we're so limited in who we feel that we are, that we dominate and control everyone. That's an atrocity to humanity. That's the biggest atrocity to humanity. And it's been here for eons. So it's time to shift that and, be free. That's really what we all want. We just want to be free.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. Like, once you are very free and like there's just possibilities every single way you look. And you literally just want to teach it to everybody because everyone should feel like this. Everyone's life should be like this. And if you don't, you're living the wrong life. I mean, I thought I was living my life, I just had no idea that like I could have this much passion for something like we have created, that, and it is just absolutely amazing. You almost can't even put words to it. It's hard to even explain it because it's just such an amazing feeling. You feel you're just in total bliss. Like people think, geez, you're super happy today. No, this is me every day. So people say that to me all the time. They're like, oh, she's always just so happy. I'm like, no, this is just like how I live. Like life's too short to be miserable. Like, wouldn't you rather be happy? Like, it's just so amazing. So when you figure out your God self and like the happiness it actually brings you, that you're living the life that was meant for you, that's what life is supposed to be about. And that is exactly what we're trying to help and teach. And there is stages through it. There really is. And everybody should go back, and if you haven't listened to our season 1, if you're a beginner, I'm telling you, like, go back and listen to that, because we really help with like you understanding different aspects of how to get to know and understand your God self and live your best life. You'll never want to go back. Nobody would, because it's misery on the other side. It really is.
I don't know for sure where or how or why the word God has become so either you have an allergic reaction to it and you're like, yeah, no, I don't want to have anything to do with God because your experiences have taught you, that's it doesn't even exist, or that you're under control of God. And why, like, why? Like, why have we not been teaching that we are equal to God and that we do have power within us to love, deeply love? Like when I was young, like I'm an Aquarian, you're an Aquarian, and we love, like deeply love. I mean, that's just one of our skills. It's one of our gifts. And it pushes people away. That was my experience anyway, is that when I deeply loved someone, it was it was too scary for them, right? Like they were like, what the heck? But they're like, that's what, right? Like that is where we should be, in my opinion. It's like this deep love that just, like, it changes the entire world. So I learned very quickly not to love too many people, and the ones that I do love, it's like, it's a different kind of love, versus just saying I love you to somebody on the street or a friend or something like that. It's like this deeper love that's just like, I don't know what it does. It's all penetrating, but it really activates the nervous system, is what I found. And I think that that's where we think we love people. We think that we love ourselves. We think that we love the earth, but we don't really love, because we don't know the depths of love. And when you move into that God self, and why don't we love like God does? That whole consciousness of the Christed consciousness in meditation, it's called the Christed consciousness level, where you literally become that. But at the same time, who's ready to accept that? I think that that's where we sort of like, we question and we doubt, because people do happen to push you away when you are like in the depths of it, of that energy of it. And like even now, like I control it, I learned really quick how to control it and how to let it expand and how to pull it in. And so I think that we're, excuse me, moving into that area of love. But at the same time, it's very scary because our nervous system gets activated. And if like all my current clients, like their nervous system is just bonkers. And this is why. It's because we haven't had the level of experience of deeply, deeply loving. And you have to love yourself at that level before you can love someone else. When you're at that level of love, that's when you know you're powerful. And that's when you feel like you are connected to all that is. And that's when you act like you are connected to all that is, right? Like there's this whole shift that happens.
There is, like, as you were talking about just being an Aquarian and, the type of love that we carry because of it. Like, I will say that after I went through my shift, I have a different type of love now. And it's like, there's so much passion to it. I literally like love everything around me. But that's what happens when, you love yourself so much, you understand yourself, and you love your God self and view yourself as your God self, that you literally love everything so deeply that all you have is love for everything around you.
But it's not a naive love. Let's get clear about what kind of love this is, because it's not a naive, the world is all butterflies and rainbows. No, it's not that. we don't live in an etheric kind of mentality, although we are very etheric, but we do have these visions, I want to say, of what could potentially be the human experience, because we are, because we do have well, I don't want to sound, people are going to take this as very egocentric, but there is you see the beauty in like nearly everything when you're like, that's my whole thing, is like, I see beauty in the worst traumatic events. Because there is beauty in every single thing. There's learning in every single thing. There is expansion in every single thing. I mean, we have these horrible experiences so that we can know ourselves at different levels and different depths. And if we use those experiences like a human would use them, right? We would come out on the other side saying, oh, that's why I had that experience. And this is the kind of love. It moves you into a whole different level or range of love. But what we've done with traumatic experiences is we've sort of blamed, shamed, and guilted ourselves into, it's my fault or it's someone else's fault, or we've done the hierarchy, right? Like, that's a hierarchy. When you move into blame, shame, and guilt, there's a hierarchy. And it's power, domination, and manipulation and control over someone else. And that, in order to move into this beautiful age of Aquarian, that has to stop, because we can't see the hierarchy any longer. We can't be the hierarchy. We can't like act through the hierarchy. We have to move into something that, well, hierarchies don't exist in different levels of love.
No. I did use the word love, but I think you said the beauty is actually a better word for that, because that's just it. I think there becomes like so much love for everything around you, but it actually isn't love as people view it. It is, you see the beauty in everything. And you're right. Mm-hmm. Like, people, those hard things that people go through in life, when you're in it, it is really hard to see past it. But when you're coming out of it, it does suck. Mm-hmm. Everyone will admit it. But mm-hmm. those things you go through, they are completely life-changing. If you would have told me before that my past would have been a blessing to me, I would have told you were crazy, because we do go through these really, really hard things in life. But the blessing that came with who I become because of it, that is what it's about. You know, we look at it as what happened to us as a human, but that's not what it's about. It is how it grew your soul and your God self, because everything in our past, we needed it there for the lessons we needed to learn. I would not be able to be who I am without the things I have in my past. None of us would be. It's how we grow. It's how we become our God self. And it's what makes you so amazing. It's the lessons you learn from that stuff that has more power than anything. That is about the power you gain, is the lessons you learn to be your God self.
Well, and it's how you use those lessons or experiences, right? Yes. It's how you view them. It's how you think about them. What happens is we have a tendency, because we're very patterny, our energy is very patterny, right? Like, the sun comes up at this time every day, the moon comes up at this time every day, right? So we're used to patterns, and that's how we rotate here in this, on the earth, is through patterns. And we get stuck in those patterns, right? It's like the hierarchy. We get stuck in the pattern of hierarchy, and we don't move from there, which is what's happening now in our consciousness and in our world, is we're trying to move from the hierarchy. but no one seems to know what's beyond the hierarchy, because, we have to use our vision in order to move beyond the hierarchy and move beyond these things that we get stuck in, these patterns. But we don't, at the same time, we have a tendency not to want to see beyond what we already know, which is the unseen, right? Because we have fear. We've been told that it's scary out there in the unseen. It's scary to move from the hierarchy. It's scary to move from, all the things that we thought we knew, which have all been lies, into a more truthful experience for humanity. And then that's where we're at. And that's where this new level of seeing yourself as God will pull you right into the unseen, the moving you out of the hierarchy, moving you out of the patriarchy, moving us out of, all these lies that we've been living through, because of the limitations and the experience that humanity wanted to have. But now we're moving more into a freedom-based experience. And we don't know what freedom is. And so it's scary because our nervous system is like, wait, hold on. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to act there. I don't know how to think there. I don't know how to feel there. Right. And so we're like, oh, no, can't move there. So we stay in the pattern.
Yep.
Break free from the pattern, people.
Yes, because it's it might be a little scary at first, but it is the most rewarding thing you will ever do in your life.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we would like to thank everybody for joining us today. Get to know your God self. You will not be disappointed. It will completely change your life. If you need help with it, please reach out to Angela and I. We would love to help you. Until next time, from our soul to yours, have a super fantastic day.